Hey friends, this is Ian Khan here again with the Undisrupted Summit. Thank you so much for watching these videos and learning from all the amazing authors and experts we have. In this interview, I have a great friend of mine, Robert Chen, best-selling author of Selling Your Expertise. This is the book you want to read if you want to position yourself as an expert and actually do the things that you think you should do and go, do your thing out there in the world. Hey, Robert, welcome to the Undisrupted Summit.
Oh, thank you so much, Ian. It's so great to see everything you're putting together. So excited to be here.
I appreciate it. Let's talk about your book. Your book is such a game changer because, we are in the era of the creator. We're in the era of, positioning yourself as a thought leader, thinker, expert, what have you. Tell us about your journey of how that book happened and why you thought you had to write that book.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to do that. So, from a professional standpoint, right now I play in a few spaces. So in the corporate training, executive coaching space, where I work with leaders to communicate, influence more effectively. I also teach leadership communication down at the Wharton Business School. And recently I started an education company focused on bringing life skills to teens. And I'll tell you, my journey kind of in over a decade of working with professionals is seeing how a lot of really smart people who put a lot of effort into building up their knowledge, the way they add value, struggle with getting others to buy into those ideas, whether that's internal inside a company or whether it's external in terms of clients. And so I felt compelled to write this book because I saw this, I would almost say, injustice of people who have really good expertise, but not able to unlock the potential for that. And certainly as a consultant myself, right, It was something I kind of came face to face with as well.
So is your book meant for people in a particular capacity, or is it cross-functional across different people that do different things in different industries?
Yeah, well, this book as it's written is really designed for knowledge workers. So if you think of the advisors, investment bankers, management consultants, lawyers, but certainly the ideas can work for those who need to sell themselves within a company as well.
Excellent. So, as we enter 2025 and people who are watching this video and we are going out there with our goals and aspirations, what are your thoughts on today? What era are we living in? What are some of the opportunities out there for us to do, whether it's economic, social, political, what have you, how do we differentiate between noise and actual things we should look at, and how can we use that to our benefit? I think that's kind of the question as well.
Well, Ian, you're probably the better person to speak to kind of what the future will look like. But what I will say, and one of the things that I think is important for everyone to keep in mind is, well, what are the skills that won't change? As the world around you is changing, that you'll want to double down on. And we call them the kind of human-centric skills, right? The ability to certainly be self-aware of your strengths and what you bring to the table, your own interests, right? The ability to learn quickly, right? As we're seeing with generative AI and all of these different technologies, how are you engaging with that, right? Are you someone that's embracing it, testing it out? Are you someone who's waiting? And I think we're in a point in time where sometimes you really have to just take the risk, right? Because if you wait too long, you can be left behind pretty quickly. So I think we're at a point in time where learning is extremely important. And then as AI takes on a lot of the technical skills, how are you focusing on perhaps the human-centric skills that can help differentiate you or allow you to continue to add value?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so much noise out there, so much information that we are bombarded with every single day, right? You wake up, you have your cell phone, you have news views, you've got TikTok, YouTube, you've got your emails coming in. There's so much happening. And, one thing we can say, definitely, there's a lot of distraction out there in the world. That's one part of how I see things. On the other hand, there's also a new way of information being generated, like, for example, news and what have you. A lot of content is being generated for someone to really achieve their goals, right? To sell their expertise. How do we do that? What are some of the steps we can take, and especially from your book? Like, what is your advice? If you can give us, top 3 things or top 5 things or a process. Hey, do this, that, and that, and that. What should we do?
Well, I think the very first thing is to understand, who does your expertise serve, right? You're working hard to build up something that you believe is of value to someone else. So that would be the first place to start. Say, okay, I'm building this thing that I'm hoping to help other people, and just making sure that that's still relevant. And the book is actually structured in kind of 3 major pillars, right? One is the mindset. So do you have the right mindset when it comes to selling your expertise? And I'll tell you, probably one of the biggest hurdles for people when it comes to selling is they spent much of their career just learning and doing the technical hard stuff that when it comes to selling, some people just have a distaste for it. So they're actually holding themselves back from engaging with this activity that, for most professionals, it actually is an evolution. So reframing selling as not a deviation from your technical work, but an evolution of your work to unlock more meaningful growth, I think would be one thing to keep in mind.
I think, before you go to the second point, I think probably one of the biggest challenges there is that people maybe start to think that, do I need to sell my expertise? But I'm not a salesperson. I don't talk too much. I'm not an outgoing person. Like,
that's right.
Those are such common objections that people have in recognizing that selling is not about just talking to people and asking them for their money, but what is the exchange of value that you're going to do? And is it really going to change the state that the customer is in and take them to a better place? Somebody has said this in a much better way, but you really have to believe in what you do and then think, is it really going to change their future somehow and what they do? And that is when you start flipping that switch, I think life changes a lot. And you know how they say, fake it until you make it. Like, there's so many strategies you can take on just to overcome that first step. And I'm sure you can talk so much about it.
Yes. Well, I would want to add, right here, it's just reframing selling into serving, right? You shouldn't be selling something to serve your own kind of need. You should be serving others. And a big part of that is, shifting from being a seller in the eyes of the client to becoming the assistant buyer, right? You're helping them buy a thing that they want to buy. And it just so happens to align with your services, right? If there is a strong alignment, and that comes with the trust building you need. And then the other 2 pillars I'm happy to get into, but I'll pause there. It looked like you had a thought.
Step number 2, go for it.
Sure. Well, the second pillar is the strategy, right? So anytime you're looking to sell your expertise, right, there are different scenarios you're in. And part of understanding how to sell effectively is to know, where are you in that kind of interaction with whoever you're trying to engage from a commercial business standpoint. And so depending on the scenario you're in, you want to adopt a different strategy, right? So a good example of that is if it's someone that you haven't met before, they don't know who you are, but you know that they could potentially be a client, right? If you adopt a strategy of pitching your services right away, right, that's likely going to put them off. Because they're like, I don't even know you. You don't even know what I need. And you're just trying to sell me something. Whereas in that scenario, you'll want to, again, build a relationship, build trust, and really think about, well, how do you do that? And often people hear this, right? Oh, build a relationship, and that's going to, help unlock a lot of doors. But how do you do that? Well, the actual building of a relationship is just getting this person to say yes to something, right? You want to get an initial commitment, and then the idea is to escalate the commitment. So for example, right, you might ask someone to have a 10-minute chat with you, right? And maybe they say no, because that's too much of a commitment. But you'll send them an article that they'll read, but something that they'll agree to. And then when they agree to that commitment, kind of over delivering, so they receive a lot of value, so they're willing to take a bigger kind of commitment with you, and then continue to kind of move on from there. And that's a way to help build relationships. So that's kind of the second pillar, just understanding what scenario you're in, and then the strategy you take. So another scenario might be, they come to you with a specific need. They already know you. They trust you. They're just not sure if you're the right person out of the 5 other folks. And then there you will adopt a different strategy, And that's where you need to instill confidence.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that, right? You might talk about the people you've worked with. You might
Yeah.
talk about your approach. And so just understanding where you are allows you to adopt the best strategy.
I love it. There's so much psychology that also goes deep into, you know, what people are now, you know, given this overload of information, what people will respond to or not. And I hear things, for example, if you ask somebody to help you get somewhere or do something, there's a higher likelihood they will respond back to you rather than you saying, hey, John or Sarah, can I pick your brain for 5 minutes? And that kind of puts people off. So there's deep tactical stuff that you can get into and say, this works for me when I ask people, hey, I'm trying to get here. Can you help me understand what that is? Or give me the right person. People will help you. And that's a better, lesser commitment for them. I hear these things all the time, but you know, it's incredible the science that goes behind becoming a better communicator, I guess, you know, and building a relationship, like you said.
Yeah, well, it is so true. One thing I'll add there, Ian,
please.
you know, and this was one of the comments you made about people who may feel like, well, I'm introverted, or I'm just not someone that puts myself out there, is that we can often just say no to ourselves. And part of, I think, being able to sell your expertise effectively is just getting comfortable with making these requests and understanding that for some people, it's just not the right time or it's not aligned with what they're working on now.
Yeah.
That's completely okay.
Yeah.
And part of what you want to do is just continue to make these requests in an effective way. And those who can engage with you, then you're down a meaningful path that wouldn't have existed if you never took that chance.
Absolutely. What is point number 3?
Well, point 3, that pillar, those are the tactics. What are the skills you need to execute on the strategy? Because you can make a lot of asks, but you could do it in a lot of different ways. And many of those ways can be, again, less effective. And when we talk about that, there are a couple of skills that we get into. One is just understanding when you should talk versus listen. A lot of times when people go into sales training, they certainly over-index on, well, you should do a lot of listening, and that's true, right? You should listen, but it depends, right? It depends on where you are in the conversation, because if they're looking to you to kind of instill confidence in them, part of it is once you've understood their problem, you need to articulate your plan. Whereas for those who, you know, over-index on one or the other, they end up either talking too much without understanding the situation, or they just keep asking questions and leaving kind of the other side not taken care of. So having a good understanding of how to do that, certainly if you are talking, how do you do that well, right? Projecting confidence in your delivery. And then if you're listening, how do you actually listen and not just listen, but you're actually waiting to talk?
Very cool. Hey, Robert, where can we find your book, find you? I'd love for our viewers to get in touch with you or to buy your book as well.
Sure. So the book is available where all books are sold. I know that's a cliche. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, if you do a search selling your expertise, you should be able to find it there. And probably the easiest way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think that's, you know, you can see all of the different links to the different places that I'm a part of.
Okay. So thanks so much, Robert. I really appreciate your time today. This was one of the best sessions we've had, really practical advice. And I hope people take it into consideration, you know, and get in there and, you know, show the world their best. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we wish you all the best, and we'll catch up again.
Thank you so much, Ian.
All right.
Take care.